This is a tribute to the neshama of Reb Moshe Yehuda Kotlarsky. Rabbi Kotlarsky was the vice chairman of Merkez Liyonei Chinuch, Chabad's educational arm that started in the 1940s under the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe and continues till today, thriving and educating Yidden, Jews all over the world. Rabbi Kotlarsky's parents, his father, Reb Herschel Kotlarsky, was a survivor. He learned in the Lubavitch Yeshiva in Otwock, in Poland, near Warsaw. And he came with a group of other students, survivors, to Montreal, to Canada, and from there he came to New York. He worked in the yeshiva office for Reb Shmayo Garari, the Rashad, the Rebbe's brother-in-law. He was a loyal and devoted employee and someone who really added to the development of not just one Lubavitch yeshiva, to many Lubavitch yeshivas, Achit Mimim, Tomchit Mimim, throughout the world. Rabbi Kotlarsky, after his marriage, he was appointed by the Rebbe, Rabbi Chadakov, to work for the Merkez. And his job consisted of traveling around and raising the awareness of the Chabad Lubavitch movement, worldwide movement. His personality, his thoughtfulness, and his keen perception of people made him truly the right ambassador. He knew how to make a joke. He knew when to say a Dvar Torah, words of Torah. He knew when to talk politics. He kept score and understood what the person he was seeing or the group of people, what they needed. And so he developed relationships in places and countries throughout the world. In particular, I know that in Central America, he had a big impact on people in Bogota, Colombia, and the first name that comes to mind is Sammy Rohr, Mr. Sam Rohr, and of course his son, Rabbi Kusil Rohr. And together with the Shliach Rabbi Yeshua Binyamin Rosenfeld, who went there on Shlichus, they made a big impact. My uncle lives in Costa Rica, and I remember him telling me how Rabbi Kotlarsky would come and knew people there as well. So he was a globe-trotting shliach for Lubavitch. But let me just share a little, like personal thoughts, and also thoughts that my chaverim, friends of mine, shared. Some of his unique things that he did, not just in the 1970s or 1980s, when I went on a shlichus, but particularly from Gimel Tammuz on, almost 30 years, where he heightened the bar of Lubavitch by putting Chabad on the map. Now you'll ask, what does that mean? There were Shluchim before, there are Shluchim after. What does it mean that he put Lubavitch on the map? So let me tell you, when I went out to California, to Marin County, which is north of San Francisco, in 1984, the Rebbe wrote to my Balabatim to be in touch with Rabbi Shlomo Kunyan, his regional director under the Merkez Liyonei Chinuch. And my employer and my boss was Rabbi Kunin, whose boss was the Rebbe, right? During those years, it was still the beginning of Shlichus. In fact, I remember, I think the third Kinnis in 1985, there were only 70, 80 of us. That's it. 70, 80 people. I remember like now, it was small. It was more intimate in a way, and it was you had older Hasidim still, Reb Shalom Poizner, Reb Mendel Futterfass, Reb Shmuel David Reitschik, you know, but it was small. The proliferation of Chabad came, you could say, directly and because of Reb Moshe Kotlarsky, who took the Rebbe's directives and words, believed in them, and didn't care to the attacks that maybe he got or complaints from the right and the left and the center and up and down. Nada. He looked forward. And because he was a man of Stolzkeit means strength, personality, he had a backbone. He wasn't thwarted, and he wasn't impacted by the negativity that at times rose. What did he do? He made Chabad Lubavitch a household name in every single corner of the world, not just the United States, the world. Many people in my community here in Borough Park, they talk about Chabad Lubavitch. Yeah, I need a good meal. I need a place for Shabbos to daven or a minyan or something like that. I call the Chabad house. I look up at Chabad.org. Gewaltig, great. That's also true. But it's much more than that. He took a kernel that was just budding, and he turned it into a beautiful flower and a beautiful tree that keeps on blossoming and giving out pretty roses, beautiful fruit, smells delicious, and people are attracted to it, i.e., Chabad. What did he use to do this, in addition to what I said earlier? So one of my friends was a shliach in a relatively small state that's very large, but doesn't have many Jewish people there compared to other states, told me how he would come to his simchas, both there and other places. From time to time, he would send them some money. And whenever he saw him, he asked him what's going on. And whenever the shliach would call him, he picked up the phone. But listen to this. Not only did he pick up the phone for a head shliach of a state, but he picked up the phone for the small guy. For the shliach, the third generation or the fourth generation of shliach. You could call Rabbi Kotlarsky. I mean, he couldn't always answer your call. But when he wasn't in a meeting or he wasn't on an airplane, you could get him. And he would talk to you. And he would talk to you genuinely. He cared for the little person, for the small shliach, the shliach in a little corner somewhere in the world without many people to support him, etc. That is a unique thing that he had and he did, and he cultivated and made it part of the world of shlichus today. Other things that he did was he cared for the Shluchim's families. He created funds for their weddings and bar mitzvahs and bas mitzvahs to give each one extra money. Sometimes the fund was out of funds, but he worked hard to do that. He thought of the personal needs of the Shluchim. Another example, he made a program for special needs children of Shluchim to have once a year, I believe, a kinus, a Shabbaton, a get-together, all paid, free, and he covered the budget. He made my shliach, and he paid the bacher and the students in 770 to become kind of personal confidants, mashpiyim, teachers, mentors, counselors for younger boys and girls, for younger girls, to look after them. A friend of mine was going through a very rough time with this Chabad house, and Rabbi Kotlarsky noticed on one of the Chabad sites that he needs hundreds of thousands of dollars to stay there. Otherwise, he could lose the Chabad house. Unsolicited, he sent him $5,000. And this was someone who he had in the past disagreements with on certain issues. They couldn't see eye to eye. Regardless, he went out of his way to send him $5,000. Now I ask you, everyone is great. Kulam kadoshim, kulam ahuvim, kulam berudim. Everyone's great, everyone's beloved, everyone is the best. But which other person in the last 40, 50 years of shlichus, 60 years, do you know that did these things? No one. Well, sometimes someone came up with an idea, it lasted for a few months, and then it became quiet. Or even if it lasted a little while, it ended. And no one's to blame. There isn't money, there isn't interest, whatever. People get busy, I understand. But with Rabbi Kotlarsky, with Rabbi Moshe Yehuda, Olav Shalom, there was no such a thing. He kept on pushing the envelope. And not only did he do that, but he got his other staff members to push the envelope. And not only that, he announced that the Knesset Shluchim and Shluchais programs of magnitude while he became already ill and wasn't well. We're gonna get people, Shluchim, to do 1 million mitzvahs with people, things like that. Kind of things that were not in the reality, seemed to be in the reality of the Shluchim and their families to accomplish. He pushed the envelope. I'm saying these things not to put him on a pedestal, because the way of Chabad, we don't put people on pedestals. But nevertheless, for the sake of our hafotza, outreach, ifutzu ma'asecha chutzu, that the holy Rabbeim, the Lubavitcher Rabbeim want, it's important to recognize the way this individual orchestrated these things. And we, particularly the new shluchim and the new young people that are going out, should learn to keep these methods alive and to augment them in a way that's way beyond even everything that's been done until now. Finally, Rabbi Kotlarsky, Rabbi Moshe, had many friends in many different places. For example, my neighbor here, a block away, Cantor Helfgott, the world's greatest cantor today, the greatest chazan. When I see him, he literally when he starts talking about the Knesset Shluchim, he says to me, I'm a Ger Chosid. I'm not a Lubavitcher. Why am I going to the Knesset Shluchim? I don't get my pay from the Knesset Shluchim. I go there because Rab Moshe, my dear Chaver, invites me. And I see firsthand the tremendous work that Lubavitch is doing for Yiddishkeit. And he says, for me and for us, Ger, to learn Daf HaYomi of Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud, we can only do it because of the Shluchim. And when he says this to me, he cries. He tears up. He becomes emotional. And I saw him at the funeral going over to the hearse and to the casket, to the aron, and I could hear him saying the Psalms and breaking down. Reb Moshe had a knack, and he came from a time and a place. He was a second-generation survivor. He had the feeling and that came along with it. And there's another point. Moshe could have lived a very, very rich life. He brought in millions and millions of dollars to the Chabad organization. Usually, such a person has a big fancy house and a beautiful car, and his office is glitzy. Take a look at the office of Rabbi Kotlarsky. It's balabatish, it's proper, but it ain't a Park Place, a Wall Street, Manhattan office. His house is a modest house. The way he dressed was very simple, my friends. I remember being amazed. His suit was a regular, it didn't seem to be a Pierre Cardin or fancy suit. It was a pretty simple suit with a tie that looked, very, very antiquated, to put it simply. No stuff. We have to focus on the cause. So his ability to not hoard money for himself and his family, and yet and give it away to Shluchim, to build Lubavitch, my friends, this is a very rare thing, and we should learn from this. The generosity. So, will he be missed? Absolutely. However, through his sons, his staff, and we wish them strength, and his wife, everyone else, to not only continue in his ways, but to go even further. And to the supporters of Chabad Lubavitch, please, not just continue your donations, up your donations, because it's money well spent. May Hashem help that the neshama of Reb Moshe Yehuda ben Reb Tzvi Yosef or Yosef Tzvi Kotlarsky should go into the Rebbe's chamber and knock on the door and ask the Rebbe to lead us to Mashiach, Freiligkeit, in a happy way, Gesundheit, in a healthy way, and we'll sing and dance in the rebuilding of the third Beis HaMikdash speedily in our day. Amen v'amen. V'kitznu v'rannu sheichne ofer v'hu b'toicham. They will awake and rise, and he will be amongst them.